Morning.
Good morning.
You sound far too bright.
Yeah, that was that was a little forced. I'm not that bright. I did go to bed pretty late. Um,
Well, hang on. When you say pretty late, what do you mean?
it's just before 4 a.m.
I don't know what I'm moaning about then. I got into bed at 3 and I was like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm going to be awake. Oh, for the thingy, our live stream.
Yeah,
And you went
it
to
was
bed at
5 to 4.
4.
Well, yeah, but you were a lot more active than I was. I got back home. It was 2, and I just hung out for a bit, had some food, and watched 2 episodes of the Easy Bake Cooking Competition on Netflix. Which I did not explain the concept of that one as well. Do you want?
Well, so but you're saying Netflix are
Our
producing these
watchers and
funny
listeners
cooking
are
shows.
Yeah. So the Easy Bake Cooking Competition is.
I'm going to tell Davina about it. I think she'll like it by the sounds of it.
She might like it. She likes Snack versus Chef. I really like that one. Easy Bake Cooking Competition is, amateur home cooks. The pitch is a little bit. It's not really very clear, but it doesn't matter. There's 2 rounds in one show episode. The episode's about half an hour, and it's all about everyday type stuff that you have to cook and like cooking hacks.
Okay.
So how can you do a dish with the best possible dish in the least amount of time?
Okay.
And jazz up things for certain occasions
Mm-hmm.
that are kind of everyday or not necessarily everyday. And so basically each episode has a theme. So the first episode is late night munchies. So you have to cook snacks in the first, there's 3 competitors. The first part, they have 30 minutes to cook, whatever version of their late night munchies, and it has to be fried. So there's like a brief every time. It has to be fried food. They have a fryer, and they have all the ingredients. They have a big kitchen. They can do whatever they want. But 30 minutes, it's really tight. 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And then there's one of the 3 gets eliminated, and then they go to the next round. And the next round, they have to do a full meal. And the condition is they're not. In this particular episode, it changes from episode to episode. But the one thing that doesn't change is they have to do everything in a huge Easy Bake oven.
Okay.
And they have a given time and a given time of oven time, and the oven is the only thing they're allowed to cook with.
Oh, okay.
So in the first episode, they have to do a late night meal, and they have 60 minutes to make it in, and they have 40 minutes of oven time. And like 10 minutes after they start, I think it's like 10 or 15 minutes after the beginning of the hour, the oven turns on, and they have 40 minutes, and then 5 minutes before the end, the oven turns off.
Oh my gosh.
And they're not allowed, I think in that one, they're not allowed anything, or there's a second episode maybe. No, first one. Not allowed any fresh food. They have to cook from frozen and cans. That's what they're allowed.
Oh. Wow.
And Snack versus Chef that I really enjoyed. That was my favorite because I love snacks and chips, and it's my
Snack versus Chef. What?
Achilles heel.
Let me see if I can guess this, right?
Yes, you can. Yes.
It's an actual. So a chef makes something, and then there's like some random snack food, and somebody says which is better.
No.
Okay.
In the first part, they have to reproduce an iconic, commercial snack. So like a Cheeto.
Okay.
Like they have to reproduce Cheetos or chips or.
Oh my God! Okay.
And then and they talk about what's the main characteristic of that particular snack, and they switch episodes of savory, others of sweet. And then in the second half, the guys have to create a snack using the characteristic that mentioned. So in the case of the Cheetos, they have to make extra hot, flaming hot Cheetos. And they talk, and what's interesting in that show, I mean, it's all like done with not a lot of budget, silly judges. In this particular show, there are 2 judges that are, and there's competitors.
Okay.
There's a bunch of competitors that get eliminated throughout the show, etc. And there's 2 judges that are useless, but a little bit funny. And I think they're aware of how useless they are because the actual real interesting, there's 2 other people who are food professionals. Like the food scientists who've worked with massive, PepsiCo, Frito-Lay type organizations.
Yeah.
And so they talk about the chemistry of the food, the producing it at like massive scale. And it's quite interesting.
I can see why you love it.
And so in the case of the Cheeto one, they have to at first reproduce a Cheeto, and they have like an hour, and it's crazy, at best as possible. And particularly, they're said that one of the things is the powder sticks to your fingers. So that's the thing and then in the second part, they have to create a snack where the brief is it's something that sticks to your finger, and you kind of want more of it. Now you always want more because it's a snack. But yeah, that's Snack versus Chef. It's cool. I liked it. And the Easy Bake is okay. Yeah, not bad. It's a bit silly, and there's a bunch of these. There's Nailed It. I didn't like Nailed It as much. Have you heard of that one?
No.
Based on the internet meme. The meme is about home cooks trying to reproduce extremely elegant, amazing looking things from TV, and that fail, and it's hashtag nailed it. It looks nothing like the thing on TV. So that's that one. And they basically take home cooks and give them ridiculously difficult brief in very limited time, and they have to reproduce it as best as possible. It's like the disaster version of the Great British Baking Show.
Oh yeah, okay. I see. I never really got into that.
Mm-hmm.
I never really got in.
I never watched that one, to be honest.
The only one I did watch, and I watched like maybe 2 or 3 episodes, and I could watch more, was the Lego one.
Oh, I didn't see that one. It seemed cool though. Is it good?
Yeah. I thought it was a great concept and really interesting to see what people came up with. Like, I think one episode I watched, like they had to build a chair out of Lego that someone could sit on.
Mm.
And the guy testing the chair, like, he has a helmet on, and I think he had pads on, like health and safety, or kind of just geeking it up and making it fun. And you had to.
Of course, there's Is It Cake? Which, if you watched any of it, Is It Cake? That made a lot of news. That's like one of their first.
Cake? And what do you mean?
Is It Cake?
Oh, is it called Is It Cake? Is that
it's called Is It Cake?
No. What the hell's that? Is that like that whole thing? Is it a Jaffa cake? Is it a cake or biscuit? Is it that kind of stuff?
No, they have to cook things in the shape of other things, and judges have to look at it from afar, have 30 seconds to go, we have to guess which one is a cake, which one is not a cake. It's based on the whole trend of, cake designers who on Instagram, and they're all like Instagram cake designers, the contestants.
Yeah.
And each episode they have a different brief. It's very silly. It's very silly, and it's made with not a lot of money, and it shows. And it's quite funny.
There's so
and they
much.
Introduce the judges, and people have never heard of them. They're like, this famous person from a Netflix show extraordinaire, this show, and I'm like, I never heard of any of this stuff. I'm not enough on Instagram. Or Netflix has never introduced me these cooking shows that you're quoting. No idea who these people are. They're like, people who work in Los Angeles, presumably. I have no idea.
But there's so much stuff out there.
Oh my God.
The only thing.
And we have not even broached any of the topics that we said we were going to talk about.
No, we haven't actually. That's true.
I have it to the side.
Oh, okay. Am I going to need a pen and paper?
Yeah.
Am I going to need dice?
Not right now. Although we could.
I've only got one die. Does that matter?
You can go online also and throw dice online.
Oh, that's true. But
actually, yeah, we do need some dice.
Some. Oh, I've got 2. Hang on, I've got 2. There we go.
3 would be good.
Are you serious? I don't have
20. Ideally 24, really, but
hang on. 24 dies or 6?
No, 24.
What? 24 of these?
18. Wait. 3 times 6, 18, 20.
You mean
6? No, 22. There's multiple ways to throw the stats, but we'll talk about that in a second.
Okay. I used to see my friends playing with like a D20.
Yeah, that's when you play. When you play as a D20. But you can so you can throw what your stats are, which also can help you figure out what kind of character you want to make.
Okay. All right.
Which we can go into now or later as you wish.
Let's get into it now.
Okay.
Hang on, let me get So what I was going to say before we do,
Yeah.
there's so much content. Like I don't watch.
Oh my God.
I don't think I watched that much.
Well,
Unless
I've
I'm
been
into-
purposely avoiding TV shows this year. I still watch a little bit of things like the TV show last night, but on in favor of more reading, more movies, and more video games. I've not been playing a lot of video games this summer, but I tend to play more. I tend to play more in the fall and winter, and less in the summer. But yes, there's so much stuff out there. So that's
ridiculous.
just ridiculous. It's
and with
impossible.
YouTube, oh my God.
Yeah, exactly.
We might come back to the rabbit hole I went down this week. We'll see.
Down YouTube?
Yeah, it was note taking.
Oh yes, you went. That's what I meant. You went down a rabbit hole of note taking for 4 days. You watching note taking videos and articles.
It was a deep dive, and I'm still not out of it yet. I'm still watching.
What's very funny is another friend James, who has a popular newsletter. Last week's edition, one of the links was, "Oh well, time to get off Evernote if you haven't already," and that was the same link I'd sent to you about the fact that it was moving to Europe, etc. And I thought that was quite funny. Just what should I remind James about this and is he sets? But no, actually, and you've been using Logseek.
Yeah, well, yeah, I have. Should we talk about this now?
What would you like to tell me?
It's so. Yeah, I've been using Logseek and Obsidian, and
yeah.
and I've been writing the daily posts. So the thing
I'm
that
still
I realized
amazed by your I know you're on holidays, maybe that's why. No, but I'm still amazed on your discipline of writing all sorts of stuff. I just don't. I wrote one post on Monday and I reposted another thing, and that was it. And it didn't get a lot of views this week.
No, I'm up to 60 something days. 60, I don't know how many days it is. But the Evernote not having bi-directional links and really super easy bi-directional links is definitely, like, forget cost and everything, it's definitely a reason to move. Because once I tried Logseek, and I downloaded Rome as well, I was like, okay, but Logseek and Obsidian, the power of this idea, this really simple idea. There's some woman who writes visual essays who wrote about bi-directional links. Let me see if I can find her name. You might have heard or read it. Maggie Appleton. Have you heard of Maggie Appleton?
I don't know.
So
maybe.
one of the
you have to send me a video. And is she on video or
no? It's a website.
You went down your big rabbit hole. Did you go again this week or?
Kind of, yeah, a little bit. Was it this week or last week I went down the rabbit hole? I don't know. I thought it was this week
because we talked about it last week.
Oh, really? Okay, well, then a bit of both. So that website, Mag Appleton, talks about the power of bi-directional links.
Yeah.
And I remember you talking about Rome, and then I was like, I looked at Rome and I was looking at it, I didn't get it. I didn't get it. But somehow I really got this whole thing. And I've been writing posts. I wrote a post in Logseek, and it was so good. Had the post in one window and had other prompts and ideas in another window, being able to open posts that link or things that link to it and have a list of things I could just open and close on the right window whilst I was writing. Wow. And being able to suddenly think, oh, but what about this? And then having it and then going back to Evernote, I was like, I can't do that. I have to open another window and then resize the thing. And then, so yeah, I was like, wow, this is really good. And just being able to instantly link to something else really fast. Very cool. Very, very cool. And the idea of the journal as well. I was like, what is the point of it? And then I was like, I can just write anything that comes to my mind, just put it there and then link it to something else. Wow. Okay, that's cool. And then I watched loads of videos about Logseek versus Obsidian. And Obsidian, looks cool, seems more stable. Didn't really like the Android app as much.
I didn't try the Android app yet.
I didn't as much as the Logseek Android app, and it just seems that if you want it to do something, you can, but you need a plugin. Whereas Logseek seems to work a lot more, like get into a workflow much more easily straight out just using it. And you can have plugins, but they're a lot more easy to pick and choose and add and whatever. But I just found it like it's the beginning of something. I'm like shocked at how powerful it is. That idea that you were going on about 2 years ago. I feel like how come why didn't I just listen to Willem and like look at this earlier?
Oh yeah, man. I was raving about it 2 years ago. I know, so that's why I'm like, yeah, what would you like to tell me about? It's funny. I'm just using it. Now I should.
What, Rome or
Rome. I mean, I might switch to another, but basically it's the same thing, right? I think.
Yeah, it is. A lot of the yeah, you were right. There was an overlap between people and ideas of Logseek and Rome. Logseek's all open source.
Yeah.
And you store the files locally.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are some differences, but it seems to be basically the same root idea.
Yeah, well, yeah. And when I open Rome and open Logseek just feels a lot cleaner and leaner and easier to get into. Yeah, to me it did.
Okay, because it seems like just a blank page with a bullet point, really, on both sides. But maybe I didn't look at Logseek properly. I only looked at a couple of videos and I stopped. I think I need to move on to other things.
I felt like the learning curve was lower with Logseek for some reason.
Well, I mean, if it's easier to use, that would be better for me.
I haven't even got into queries yet, and I'm going to start looking at that too.
Okay,
but
I have to try it.
Yeah, there's a few things where
and I have graphs on my account. If ever we can open a graph that you can play with. I never understood the point of having more than one graph, but I guess I can use it for a specific project, like writing a book.
Why would you have more? Yeah,
it's like a database. You can open. I have three on my account, and I'm only using one because I throw everything in there.
Point. Yeah, I can't see the point.
Some people were arguing for keeping like a work and a personal or one specific project, like a book. But I thought, well, the whole point is to link everything, so I'm putting everything the same.
I agree with you
because one graph doesn't link with another graph.
Yeah.
I guess, or perhaps if you have a work one that you collaborate with other people, that's another possibility.
Yeah,
but in which case, I think it would be better to have a different account entirely because the graph would still be linked to one email. So I don't know.
But I think you're right. I think the surfacing of related concepts and ideas and being able to, be able to go down your own rabbit hole with your own stuff is actually quite good. I
think that was the appeal for me in the first place. And it seems there's people that are in this camp or people that are like, no, separate projects. But I'm like, well, if they don't communicate with one another with bidirectional links, what's the point?
And even this whole work-life thing, no, it's all my life. It's just my life. It all relates.
Well, that's a whole other philosophy debate on separating both. I tend to be very mixed, but I understand people. And in France, people tend to be very separate. A lot of people don't want their work life to intersect with their personal life at all. Like they leave work behind and they go home and they don't.
I'm not saying
themselves or share things on LinkedIn. They're like,
I'm not saying don't have boundaries. I think work-life balance is a kind of misconception because it's all my life, and I have to intentionally have boundaries. Like otherwise, especially my job, it will just take over your entire life.
Yeah.
If I don't actually, otherwise, and then the other annoying thing is when, like, that I find with a lot of my colleagues is that they don't switch off, or because they don't have boundaries, they don't feel like they get a chance to do other things because work just bleeds everywhere. Whereas I'm very intentional about saying I'm going to do some work now because I want to, and now I'm going to do something else, and now I'm going to do something else. And if I didn't, I wouldn't be able to. It would all just splurge everywhere, and I'd get like my head wouldn't function. I'm not being very articulate today, but that's really helpful for me. And if I choose to do work at home, fine, I choose to do work at home. But it's
Mhm.
not I have to. Oh my God, work is so busy. Nah, I don't like that idea. And then, of course, talking to you or whatever, whoever I'm talking to, I might get a great idea for a lesson or some random stuff. And then I'm like, okay, well, again, in Logseek, or whatever it is, Obsidian, I can just put it straight in the phone.
Mhm.
Whereas I put it in Evernote, I then have to be able to find it and resurface it is just more difficult. You
Yeah.
can, I really get what you said. You can just put everything in there and with a hashtag or whatever, and you will find it. I would find it.
Yeah. And there's it's interesting because I think it's what I talked about last week as well, that sometimes it's nice to have the Evernote tree of folders and files
Yeah.
and names, and because it reminds you of things. You can put shortcuts to the bar, and I could have
Yes.
more of them
Yes.
if I wanted.
Yes.
Maybe I should update them a little bit. On the other hand, I could throw things in Rome and forget about them if I haven't tagged them properly. Or one thing I've started doing maybe a little bit more is tagging them with a date so that it resurfaces.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now I have to know or just, put a random date the following week to remember, so it just comes back.
Well,
I started
that
using
was
it for other things on house things, which I've been meaning to do for a while, and I started now. It's very, of course, unorganized and, let's say, organic, how I start integrating more things within Rome, such as changing my toothbrush head every 3 months, or my razor blades. And I was like, oh, I have the approximate, but now what if I write it down? And I'm going to write it down, I changed the razor blade and put a notification for 6 weeks time to change it again.
Oh, you can control the notifications like that in Rome easily?
No, I just wrote a line saying, I changed the toothbrush, changed the razor blade.
In your journal?
Check again in 6 weeks, date picker.
Okay.
Pick the date 6 weeks from now, so that in 6 weeks, that line will reappear.
Nice. I mean, it's simple stuff like that that gets forgotten. I like what I discovered I can do in Logseek with a plugin is have your journal with a date, set something for a future date in the journal, link the two. And then as you go through the days, the journal will just pop up.
I should look at the journal. My journal in Rome is just a template.
And you can set up templates as well. There's a lot of power in it.
I've not been doing a lot of templates, but I have been changing my journal on a quarterly basis.
Oh, nice. You know what you said about the folder thing?
Mm-hmm.
I noticed it this week more when I was writing posts. It takes a lot of effort to go through the folder stuff to get stuff and to set it up. I'm like, I could have done this a lot quicker in Logseek or Obsidian. Don't forget
and
folders.
there's still people that have extremely complex and sophisticated classifying and organizing systems. I just picked a simple one from a tutorial that I still use, which is to say I have a few pages that I call like metadata pages at the top. The date the page was created, and then write the rest. That's it. So at the top of every page, I have
and you can set that as a template, can't you, with the metadata? Or I think they're called attributes in Rome, aren't they?
Probably.
Something like that.
But probably.
But yeah, I'm interested, and to follow the. I mean, Logseek is so new. It's and there's a massively active developer community, and people feel like I've been on the forums for both Obsidian and Logseek and posting questions and stuff as well. That's how far I've gone.
What did you think of this? The video you sent me that I haven't watched the whole thing just yet, comparing Logseek and Obsidian.
Yeah,
about this idea that the main difference is that fundamentally Obsidian is a large page to write long things, presumably, whereas Logseek is a block editor.
Now,
so I guess my question then is, what did you think of the difference between one and the other to write a long article or to write long pieces?
So this is interesting because there's a document mode in Logseek that I used to write posts, and it was perfect. It's perfect, and it was really easy. It was like escape
What is document
TD.
mode?
So what? So normally in Logseek, you write something, you press enter, then a new bullet
Yeah.
appears. You write something, and then you can drag the bullets around. You can
Yes,
indent,
because
and
each bullet
it's an
is an
outliner.
individual block.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and Rome is like that, I think, as well.
Yes, same.
Now in Logseek, in document mode, when you write and press enter, it doesn't create a new bullet. It just puts a new line in that block.
Oh, maybe there's
So,
something like that for Rome that would be useful. I'm sure there is. I never looked at what the plugins are or what's going on there.
so it meant that I could write, but it was so easy to find and so accessible with a keyboard shortcut. So I could, the bullet hides, and I could write.
I would like to have that because that's the reason I started liking Obsidian as I'm testing it, and I started using it to write longer all my posts basically.
Yeah. Now I tried that in Obsidian, but it didn't feel as good, and the flicking between the two I really liked. So I could flick between bullet mode and not whatever, and of course in I don't know if you could do it in Rome, but in Logseek you can drag the bullets around. So if you have,
you can do it in Rome.
Yeah, I thought you could. So I could have like a few things at the top, a few ideas, and then go into document mode, type, and easily go back to bullet mode and move things around if I wanted. Now, like the moving things around within the article was a bit harder, but it's just like copy paste. Now, when I post things on WordPress, everything is a separate block. Each paragraph is a separate block, so you can move things around. But I hate writing. I wouldn't write in WordPress. It would go onto my blog after I've done all the editing and all that kind of stuff.
That's what I tend to do. Yeah.
So that's exactly what I tried this week, and I was like, wow, I prefer to do it in Logseek. I did in that document mode. Rome might have one and probably does, but I did.
I'm going to check if
like,
it does because I think it would change a few things for. Yeah, it would change my experience of writing probably. So,
and it's the two windows thing and the ease of opening. I think I don't know if it's the same in Rome, but Shift, click another thing, and it opens in the sidebar while you're opening. That's so good. And then being able to have multiple things open on the right as I write.
Yeah,
so much better than Evernote. So yeah, to be continued, basically.
Yeah. All right, Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay, so what are we doing?
What are we doing?
Well, what we are doing, rather. Sorry. So we're familiar. You are for now familiar with tabletop role-playing games. We've talked about that well enough. And I think, by the way, are we going with Dungeons and Dragons just because it's the biggest? Because I was also just now thinking, well, actually, is this what you want to play versus something else I have on my shelves? But in any case, we could just go through, because when we played Cthulhu Confidential, there was a couple of things you can change, but your character was set. So you didn't go through the experience of creating your own character, which is one of the staple, one traditional staple type experience of tabletop role-playing games. Now, it's not true for all games, not true for all genres of gaming, but in very often that was the idea that we said, well, it would be a fun experience to talk about how to create a role-playing game character, and Dungeons and Dragons because it's the biggest game around, really. So we're talking about and you've seen the movie, right?
The new one.
Yeah, Honor Among Thieves.
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
So that's set in a new universe, but Dungeons and Dragons is fantasy role-playing game, like a medieval fantasy type thing where you play an adventurer.
Yeah,
and there's multiple types of worlds. It's a world agnostic type of thing in the first place. There's a set of rules for fantasy role-play, and you're creating heroic characters.
Yeah, they had all the tropes in the film.
Yeah, and they had all the tropes in the film. Let's see. So what you have is and I'll send that over to you, a character sheet.
Oh yeah, okay. So
the idea in the role-playing game is that you're creating a character that is your avatar, I guess. That is the character that you interpret and play. and you can talk about your character, and that's what you started doing in the Cthulhu Confidential game last year, in the third person or in the first person, as you wish. But each game has certain sets of rules to help you understand and imagine what are the characteristics of your character.
Yeah.
In Dungeons and Dragons, the beginning starting points is you have physical and mental, but you have 6 stats basically. The 6 stats are strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma.
What's constitution?
Constitution is how tough you are, and each of the stats is rules over important aspects of your character.
Yeah.
And in the case of Constitution, it's how many dice points do you have? So how many hit points? How much damage can you take?
Yeah, so something happens where you, I don't know, fall, get hit, whatever, that kind of thing. Okay.
So like in a video game, if you get hurt, you might lose hearts like in Zelda or life points. So that's called hit points in Dungeons and Dragons. If you have a higher constitution, it's better. So strength is what helps you use melee weapons, swords, etc. Dexterity, what helps you go fast or be nimble. So there's different types of weapon that are based on dexterity, and then different types of skills like acrobatics or hiding, things like that.
Okay.
Constitution is all about hit points, so that's useful to everybody. It tends to be the most important or second most or third most important stats.
Oh, really?
Because the more hit points you have, the more you can survive.
Okay.
So it's useful. Then intelligence is all to do with magic. Well, not to do with magic because you have other things, but basically each type of character, what's called a class, will have stats that are more important than others. So for a warrior, strength is important in constitution. For a wizard, intelligence is important. And then and it also helps you resist magic and things like that. And then you have wisdom. Wisdom is what's important for priests or also monks. And then you have wisdom, charisma. I think that's it.
Yeah, you didn't say charisma. You didn't really say what charisma was.
Yeah, well, charisma is everything to do with charm, people pleasing, social skills. It tends often to be the stat that you put to last. You're just like, all right, well, I don't know what else to do with this thing. I'm not going to put charisma. There's very few classes that need charisma. However, it can be useful to have. And usually, if you're going to try to convince someone of something, you might have to throw in charisma. Let me see. So something like intimidation, deception, performance, which is or persuasion. That's all charisma. It's traditionally understood that charisma is a level of your social and physical looks. So if you have high charisma, it might be that you look good, or it might be that you look really confident, trustworthy, nice, empathetic, things like that. All right, so so the order step by step of characters is usually first choosing a race. So humans, because there's more than one type of race, which gives you specific characteristics. The most common are humans, and then thus choosing a class. All right, so hit point, hit dice.
I see. So you could be a human, blah blah blah, with all these characteristics.
Yeah, a human warrior, a human wizard. So the races are dwarves. So we're talking dwarf like Lord of the Rings. Of course, a lot of Dungeons and Dragons in the first place is inspired by the lore of Lord of the Rings. So typically it's stereotypical a little bit, but we're talking about people who are short, typically under 5 feet tall. They go hang out in mines. They like hammers and big beards. and
And
gold
drinking.
and drinking, and they're good craftsmen, typically. And there's little excerpts from classic fantasy books that give a sense of what this type of people is about. So in this case, we have an excerpt from the Crystal Shard of R.A. Salvatore that says, "Ye late elf," came the rough edge of a familiar voice. Bruenor Battlehammer walked up to the back of his jet foe, disregarding the fact that the heavy monster lay on top of his elven friend. In spite of the added discomfort, the dwarf's long, pointed, often broken nose and gray streaks, though still fiery red beard, came as a welcome sight to Drist. Drist is a dark elf, very famous. I've never read these books, actually. They're a big staple of Dungeons and Dragons literature.
Oh, are they? I never. What are they called?
The Crystal Shard, but I don't know the series. I can't remember right now. But the character is Drist Durden and Bruenor Battlehammer.
Don't suggest another series of books to me.
Oh yeah, we'll have to talk about that. Okay. And we could totally play the Harry Dresden game. And then we have an elf.
Is that any good though? Is it any good?
I had a lot of fun. It depends who you're playing with. This is Drist Durden. He's a dark elf.
Okay.
You have elves. The bit that's read is from Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman, Dragons of Autumn Twilight. It's a big series, another big series of classic fantasy books.
What are the characteristics of elves? They're like, what? Is it more magic? And
yeah, they tend to be more associated with magic. They're tall, slender, beautiful, eerie beauty, pointy ears, long hair. What else? Slender and graceful, unearthly grace and fine features. Elves appear hauntingly beautiful to humans and members of many other races. They're slightly shorter than humans on average, ranging from well under 5 feet to just over 6 feet tall. They're more slender than humans. They usually weigh 100 to 145 pounds. Males and females are about the same height, and males are only marginally heavier than females. Elves' coloration encompasses the normal human range, but also includes skin in shades of copper, bronze, and almost bluish white hair of green and blue.
Okay.
And eyes like pools of liquid gold and silver. They have no facial and little body hair. They can live over 7 times, but they live well over 700 years, giving them broad perspective on events.
Okay. Okay.
Some live in the woods. Some take adventuring out of wanderlust, and then so you have some you have some what it means to your. So, for example, if you're a dwarf, your constitution is increased by 2 because they're really stout and strong. And they have things about age, and they see in the dark. If you take an elf, depending on what type of elf, but your dexterity increases 2. So you have a +2. You have keen senses, so you're proficient in the perception skills.
How long do dwarves live usually?
They live about, on average, 350 years.
Okay.
They have matured about the same rate as humans, but they're considered young until they reach the age of 50.
Okay.
Then we have different types of elves. Then we have the halflings that are basically hobbits, but for copyright reasons are not called hobbits.
Yeah.
Regis the halfling, the only one of his kind for hundreds of miles in any direction, locked his fingers behind his head and leaned back against the mossy blanket of the tree trunk. Regis was short, even by the standards of his diminutive race. I don't know how to say that.
Diminutive. Does say diminutive.
Diminutive. With the fluff of his curly brown locks barely cresting the 3 foot
God, it really
mark.
does sound like hobbits, doesn't it?
But his belly was amply thickened by his love of a good meal or several as the opportunities presented themselves. So yeah, the comforts of home are the goals of most halflings' lives. A place to settle in peace and quiet, far from marauding monsters and clashing armies, a blazing fire and a generous meal. Fine conversation and fine drinks. Though halflings live out their days in remote agricultural communities, other form nomadic bands who travel constantly. They stand around 3 feet tall, inclined to be stout, weighing between 40 and 45 pounds. They're kind and curious, affable, cheerful people, etc. Exploring opportunities. They usually set out on the adventurer's path to defend their communities, support their friends, explore wide and wonder-filled land. They're hobbits.
It's the friendship thing, isn't it? That's what the hobbits are cool for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they have your dexterity score increases by 2. Halfling reaches adulthood at the age of 20 and generally lives into the middle of his or her second century. So they go 150 years old. So humans are humans, so they're the most common type
And
of
they
thing
don't
around.
live anywhere near as long as elves and
Nope, they don't. So what you do have instead is all your ability scores increased by 1.
Really?
Which is a lot. Yeah, there's a few different
Interesting.
variants. You can either I don't have an opinion about it, but right now you can have optional rules where you either gain proficiency in a skill of your choice, or you gain feats. Feats are special skills.
Yeah.
Then you have more exotic races there are more. You also have world specific ones. So in the Dungeons and Dragons movie that is set in the world of the Forgotten Realms.
Yeah.
You remember they have like the bird person who's one of the at the beginning of the movie when they're trying to get out of prison.
Yeah.
So there's a bird person. That's a specific type of race that exists in the Forgotten Realms that is not necessarily described in this book.
Okay.
But you have Dragonborn. So they're a type descendant of mix of humanoid dragons.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Um,
That's a new one on me.
Yeah, that's quite rare. Then you have the gnomes. So it's kind of like a small elf, I guess. Let's see. The Dragonborn, your strength increases 2, your charisma score increases by 1. They tend to be extreme type characters.
Yep.
Gnome, your intelligence score increases by 2. What are the things about gnomes? Vibrant gnome's energy enthusiasm for living shines through every inch of his or her tiny body. They average slightly over 3 feet tall. So they're about the same size as a halfling, but they're lots more slender. They have pointy ears, big personalities, wild hair,
Okay.
savage. As far as gnomes are concerned, being alive is a wonderful thing, and they squeeze every ounce of every enjoyment out of their 3 to 5 centuries of life. Humans might wonder about getting bored over the course of such a long life, and elves take plenty of time to savor the beauties of the world in their long years. But gnomes seem to worry that even with all that time, they can't get enough of the they can't get in enough of the things they want to do and see. So they live fast. They're interested in all sorts of stuff. They make their homes in hilly, wooded lands. They live underground, but get more fresh air than dwarves do, enjoying natural living worlds. Okay, cool.
That is cool.
They're curious and impulsive. They like to travel the world.
Do they make stuff? Are they not known? Like, so far, dwarves are known for making stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I thought gnomes
they
might
don't
be.
seem to say in particular, but you can.
It's just like the enjoyment thing.
Yeah, they love lovers of gems and other fine items.
Okay. Yeah.
But they don't seem to be known particularly for making stuff.
There's
one trope is
I'm gonna have to interrupt
illusion.
a second.
Okay.
Davina wants to tell me something.
Sure.
I don't know. I'll be back.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm really enjoying this.
Good.
We'll pick something and then we'll end.
I guess maybe I should keep talking because otherwise it's not very interesting. Or you can just fast forward if ever you're still watching this. Fast forward to the part where we speak again.
I'm back. Okay, so
Yes, let me go a little bit faster, perhaps.
I didn't know there were so many. This is cool though.
Yeah, I'm going to go a little faster because I want to read through the list of races and classes.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, so then you have the half elf, which is a mix of human and elf.
Okay.
You had both in your bloodline. Half orc, mix of orc and human. A tiefling, which is you're descendant of a demon and a human somehow. In the movie
Never heard
Dungeons
of
and
that.
Dragons,
Yeah.
the person who's a shapeshifter is a tiefling. She has horns
Oh, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
a
yeah.
tail, where she hides.
Yeah, yeah,
Can't remember
yeah.
her
Oh,
name.
yeah, yeah. I remember. Um, Hang on. What about orcs?
You can't play orcs, or unless it's
Because
organized such, because they're bad.
okay, makes sense.
I mean, or you're playing in a setting that is specifically organized for that, and it's just not really offered as a choice. Half orcs are, well, yeah, you can play them, but
I can understand why you wouldn't. Goblins?
same. They're
Okay.
monsters.
Yeah.
You could, I'm sure you can find a setting where there's the description of how to play a goblin, but that's not in the base, I think.
No, no, yeah, I'm interested in the basic
So
ones.
you choose a race and then you choose a class, and that's
Yep.
like your, vocation type thing, which is between barbarian, bard, cleric, druid. Well, again, the tiefling, the shape shifter is a druid.
Yep.
Fighter. Oh, and the main Chris Pine is a bard.
Yeah.
Um, Fighter or warrior. Monk, which is more of a mystical kung fu warrior type thing. Although you don't
Yep.
have to do kung fu, but it's the idea. If you look at the drawings, is kind of like that. Paladin, ranger, rogue, scoundrel, sorcerer, warlock, and wizard. So you have different types of wizards.
Okay, so out of all of those, so you pick a race, and then you can pick
The
any of
class,
those classes.
yeah, and
Okay.
either
Okay.
before or after, you also throw dice for your stat pool.
Yep.
The way it works is each stat is between 3 and 18, basically. So what you generally do is you can either choose to how you organize them, but typically you will throw 3-sided 6 dice,
Three.
3
Oh, I
for
found a
one stat.
dice. So I've got this dice roller on. It
Yeah,
looks like it's built
exactly.
into Google.
Yeah.
Wow,
Well, hey, there's the dice roller in Google, of course.
that's really cool.
Yeah,
And
it is.
you can choose all the different. Wow,
Yeah,
that's very cool. And you can I see. You can add the modifier as well.
yep,
Wow.
absolutely.
Oh wow. That's very good. 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 20. Okay, so I've
So
got
one way to do
three.
it, the one way that
I've
I
got three
like doing
sixes
it,
ready to go.
wait, I'm looking, but one way that I like doing is you throw, is it 24 or 22? I have it in my notebook over there. Wait, let me okay, so I think so wait, so it's 3 times 6 is 18.
Hmm.
Is that right? Yes, that's right.
Yep.
18, 22. So okay, so that's so if you throw 22 dice and then you remove the 2 lowest and the 2 highest, so presumably you're going to remove 2 6s and 2 1s if it works out that way.
Yeah, hang on, hang on. Say that again. I didn't follow that.
So throw 22 d6-sided dice.
Yeah, but a D6, only how many? How do you get 22? Oh, I see. So you throw 4.
No, throw 22.
How?
So okay, so you can go on a dice roller
Yeah.
and throw 23. Oh, you could just Google, you can Google throw 22 D6.
Okay, let me try that. Oh, I see. Okay, I just and it does it for you. Hang on. Okay, I got to share my screen because I
Yeah.
just think that's really quite funny. So I did throw 22 D6.
Yeah, perfect.
And then it did that.
Yeah, so this is where you can start using your notebook. What you
But hang on a
want,
sec.
huh?
How would you do that normally if you actually had physical die? What would you
Throw
do?
them. I
You
have them.
throw,
I throw them.
but you throw what, 4 D6s? Or you just keep throwing
No,
the
you could
six?
throw 22. If you
I
have
don't
them, I have them. I would throw 22.
I don't get how you throw 22 with D6s.
I don't. Well, look.
I'm missing something really obvious here. I'm just not getting something here.
These are D6s. Yes.
Yes.
They're six-sided dice. You
Yes.
count 1, 2
Yeah.
until you have 22, and you throw them.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry. Is literally 22 D6s.
Yes, that's what you did on your screen.
It is what I did. Okay. I thought you meant the total. Okay.
I know,
okay.
that's quite
Right.
funny. I did get how we're not understanding one another. It was quite funny.
I was like, what are you doing? It could be 22.
Okay, so now you have the 22 on screen, right?
Just a second, right?
Yes.
People have 22 D6s, like they just have them.
Sorry?
I mean, you do. You showed me 22 D6s there.
Yeah,
How many
I
you
have
got
like
there?
this one is there's 36.
How many have you got there?
This is 36. And I have another thing of 36 in my bag.
Okay, this new world opening up here for me. This is interesting.
By idea, I can show you my
22.
dice collection. Now you can also do it in several times, but you have it online.
But that just takes ages. Okay, fine.
So this is one alternate method that I quite like that I learned recently. So you're gonna have to write them. You're gonna have to write notes because what you're doing now is first remove 4 that are the 2 lowest and the 2 highest. So presumably 2 1s and 2 6 you remove from the set. Okay.
Wait a minute. I got it. So I got 2 1s and 2 6s.
Yeah. So those you remove.
How'd you do that? Can I click on it?
Nah, well, you're just gonna have to do it manually. You don't write them down, basically. I think. I don't know if there's another way to do it, and now with the rest of them, which is 18, you have 18 times. You have 18 different numbers. You have to pull them by 3 sets of 3.
Sets of 3. Okay, fine.
Yes, sets of 3. One set of 3 makes up one stat. Understood?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. I just take out any 2 6s and any 2 1s, and then
so that's
down.
just a way to so usually one way to roll stats, a traditional way is you roll 3d6 and whatever results you have is your stats.
That's make more sense to me.
It does, but this is one way to counteract bad rolls and to be able to reassociate things in a little bit more homogenized way, rather than I just rolled a 6, which is extremely bad stat.
I see. Okay.
So it's a way to homogenize and make sure that you have at least one good stat. So, for example, share your screen again.
Okay. Oh my god! I didn't realize these intricacies. This is really cool. Okay.
So you want to have how many 6s you have?
1, 2, 3, 4. Loads. 1, 2, 3, 4,
so
5.
For example, you can totally have one stat, 3 6s, and that's your highest stat. You have an 18 stat, but then you might want to look at how that looks with the others. It's honestly, I'm giving you the more complicated option. Maybe you should just go, okay, so you could change one thing. Let's do this. Roll 3d6.
Hang on. Oh no.
That's going to roll another one.
I know.
So if you go to the top and instead of 22, erase and do 3. There you go. 12. Okay, so you write down 12.
Okay, right. I see. Yep.
Write down 12, then do it
Yep.
again. You're going to do that 6 times.
Yep.
16, good. 13, all right. Still within range. 11, still staying on the medium side. 15, pretty good.
5, 15.
That's good.
That's 6.
That's 6. Okay, so that's going to be your stats.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a pretty good one. Well, you don't have anything super strong, but you have strong, but you also don't have anything really bad. So it's pretty good roll. And then you'll be able to, depending on the type of character you want to do, tie those stats to strength, to dexterity, etc.
Okay, cool.
Do you have an idea what kind of thing you'd like to make, or?
I have no idea.
It's very interesting how one of the I find sometimes difficult on paradox of choice. You have like so many options.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a firm idea in mind of what you're doing, and what you're doing can be the way I look at it is a what the game is.
I see. Like what the world, what the game is, what character you want to play
like
within
in
that.
the previous one, Cthulhu Confidential, I told you what the game was. It was film noir meets Cthulhu.
Yeah, so that makes sense. Yeah.
So you know exactly what it is you're playing. Whereas this, the fact that the one advantage is a bit of a sandbox of whatever you want in fantasy literature, but whatever you want is like, I don't know what we're doing. So it's one of the flaws, and I tend to prefer games these days, role-playing games, that propose something specific, that you know what you're playing. So for example, I have this game called Spire, where you play dark elves in a vertical city that are part of a resistance movement against trying to overthrow an evil empire. You know, it gives you a very firm sense of like, this is the environment you're playing.
Yeah. I can see the appeal of both. So you might want to.
So what we can do maybe another time is talk more about what kind of environment we're playing in that could give you some idea, and then we can just brainstorm a bit more what kind of character you might want.
I like that idea. The context, it's what's interesting from a storytelling point of view is how the scene setting, the context, the whole thing makes a massive difference to what's happening. Because the more I've read the Dresden Files, the more he reveals through each book about, because the first one is just him.
Yeah.
And then you have a bit of context, and the second one is a bit more, and the third one's a bit more, and the fourth one is more like, what? There's a council meeting. This is what happens in a council meeting. There's different kinds of like, and it's just, I don't know if he planned it from the beginning that way or if it started to emerge, but clearly I really want to know about how he writes, because it's done so well. It's done so well.
I'm going to look at it as well. And a lot of it comes from role-playing games in the first place.
Well, and when you said that, it made complete sense. It's like he goes from thing to thing to thing, and then he has to choose what he's going to do. And it just, if you has that feel to it, but a much more, I don't know, it felt accessible. Fairies and ogres. He's had a run in with an ogre in and then he said episode 4 in book 4. It's so good. It's so good. And there's hints. Really good. I know. He also puts in hints of like the godmother and his mother and his father. So I found out now, like this woman, Elaine, has come back into his life, and he thought she was dead. Okay. Well, that's like, that just changes everything now. We're finding out more about him.
Yeah.
And the thing I liked in book 3 was the good guy. He's just good the whole time. Talks about God. And what's it called? The sword. He has the
Knights
sword.
of the Sword.
Knights of the Sword. Is that
Michael? You're talking about Michael.
Yeah, I was talking about Michael with his sword. I can't remember the name of the sword. I was like,
his sword is Amorakius.
That's it. What a great foil to Harry. It's just so good, so good.
Yeah, all the characters around him are fantastic. They're really, really good.
They are, and it's done in a very kind of like you feels like it could be normal life kind of way. that's, you know, better than. I mean, I remember reading Harry Potter and getting into it, and for the story and the characters and all that kind of coming of age stuff. This is different. This is so much more kind of not adult necessarily, but there's more of a bigger kind of story universe building going on, world building going on. But it's done in a much more. Dune feels epic from the beginning. Dresden Files feels like you're stepping into something, and more is emerging. Like it just,
and it still respects its humble kind of procedural.
Yeah, it
story
does.
By story thing.
It does. And that's a massive skill to be able to have lots of little stories that fit together in something much bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that happens with role-playing games or not?
I think so. Well, it really depends. It really depends, but typically, actually, not that much necessarily. Typically, you will play either what's called a one-shot, like we did with a Cthulhu Confidential. It's one story, one thing, one evening, one adventure, maybe one or more sessions, or play in a campaign, and that's more of big story arc. In multiple episodes, but typically it's just all like one big story.
But it emerges. See, this is the thing. Like you were talking about gardens and architects,
and it's different. Kind of stuff. It's also just role-playing games are different than fiction and literature.
Oh, totally. But the story kind of emerges at the same time because it's the whole co-creation thing, isn't it?
Yes, that's why the story emerges as people are playing, and depending on the style, as you said, architects and stuff like that. Depends what kind of game you're playing. Whether you're playing a game where the game master has a specific story and people are like along for the ride and they're quite happy to follow the tropes, or do you have something that's more on the sandbox type thing where you have people in situations and goals and then you let the players do whatever they want, which takes more responsibility and creative collaboration from the players, and some people are not used to that.
As I'm listening to you, I'm really surprised that I didn't get into it a lot.
And if you said that several times, I agree.
And I'm like, what was I doing? Do you know what I think it was? I think guitar.
Oh yeah, you were into music and rock.
I think
I was too, but I was also playing role-playing games. But of course, you're not surprised that I would be, jack of all trades, trying a few different things, having my hands in a few different pots.
No, but you know a hell of a lot about role-playing games. Like it's your thing. Like guitar's my thing. I think in another multiverse,
that's true.
I didn't play guitar. I got into role-playing games. It's just a very natural kind of like if you think about. Okay, so this is going to sound very funny, but if you think of ourselves as characters with all these attributes and skills, and the dice got rolled when we were born, and we were given all this stuff, then I think. This is my theory. Across the multiverses, I got the same roles, but they got taken in different directions. So in one universe, I'm role-playing, super into role-playing. Another one, I'm super into guitar. In another one, I'm super into, like, I don't know, programming. But I like the idea of having the same fundamental skill role that God just goes, plop, here you go. It's who you are.
That is funny.
There is something cool about that. And I can see the appeal of playing this kind of thing. It's a shame that our mutual friends didn't get themselves involved in it and we could never coordinate, because I think that would be so cool.
Yeah,
it would be.
But yeah, I agree.
And I can also see the appeal of playing in a group and getting into it and the whole thing.
That's what I like. I'm glad I have a regular group right now. It's going to change a little bit, but it's really nice guys, so it's cool.
But that's what I was going to say. It's harder to get everyone together, isn't it? That's the thing you're finding difficult.
Yeah, that's challenging with age for sure. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah, that's all right. I've got my numbers. So I'm going to see you in a few days.
Yeah,
it feels kind of surreal.
It does. It's cool.
And we didn't talk about getting older. I'm just looking at next week. Next week should be fine.
I can't. I'm going to be busy next week, probably.
Oh, you
next
are?
Weekend.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. What a silly person I am. Well, we'll sort out when we're going next, and then we'll get into the creation of the character. I'll do some research. What
Yeah.
I want to see is a table of races and characteristics.
Yeah, I'll send you the documents
Send it all
so you
to
can
me.
take a look.